Okay, I don't like when people do this. I really don't. I don't like when people do this. I don't like when people give me a hypothetical situation that actually has no context attached to it other than the vacuum that they've created. He says that I think that I'm missing some things here about Bomby plus Abyssal Mass could be more damage. If Fudge asked you, give me an MR and HP item that does more damage. It's not about doing more damage because the damage we've already established is extremely minuscule. So because the damage is extremely minuscule, ultimately what we're talking about is the completion of an item for its actual stats, not the damage that it's actually doing, because the damage is so extremely negligible. So there wouldn't be an answer to this fucking question because the question in itself is fundamentally flawed and it's ignorant of what actually is happening inside of the game. Also, this item specifically has interesting TEQ on top of Udyr. If you're able to get this item early as Udyr in this matchup, for example, if your opponent has like Gwen locked into the lane-reliant farming, having items to have impact, you can create some pretty suffocating scenarios for them. No, completely fucking wrong, because the excess that this item is actually giving you relative to the value of just building into another item already, after having established that the damage differential is so fucking negligible, means that the situations that you've created against Gwen and your ability to step on her throat or fucking crush it between your hands has nothing to do with the actual completion of the item itself, but rather scenarios that are surrounding the item. I can give an example, well, evidently you can't, of how each wave was played in this game, but here's a theoretical one. I don't want to give a theoretical one. I do not give a fuck. If you're going to come at something that I said, you actually should have legitimate scenes or examples. Do not fucking pull a Rigby. Let's remember the second passive, unique, desolate, killing an enemy unit deals. No, we don't remember that at all because you're never proccing it. That's literally just for wave clear, and the wave clear stuff is fake because obviously champions that are building this now did not have it prior, and you also don't need this for wave clear on a lot of things because the actual wave clear that it hastens for your champion, it is oftentimes extremely negligible. Let's say you're Udyr, and before he's able to crash this wave, weaken the minions a bit with Phoenix R. You've given a few options here. Trim the wave, freeze, or all in Gwen. Again, context completely irrelevant. You're creating a situation that is hyper-specific and beneficial for your exact instance that you're using to then argue with me on Twitter for literally no fucking reason when you're assuming, one, that I've not entertained, like, X amount of context, right? But I'm actually up here, and then I'm not even actually up here. Here's just the fucking ceiling. And then you break through that ceiling, and then I'm already up there for the scenarios that have been, like, entertained. And then you're creating this hyper-fixated fucking nuanced situation in which this thing is right. And it's never about that. It's about practicality. And the reason that it's about practicality, and no one fucking understands this, I'm going to lose my mind, is because this is ultimately what you're fucking... this is ultimately what you're fucking chasing. Something like this, okay? You're chasing something like this, okay? And this is obviously like, now I'm just gonna use this image or this graph for the sake of like what we're concerned about, okay? When you do something that has a 2% or a 1% edge over thousands of times, or, you know, tens of thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times, you eventually have a graph like this. Okay, it's not, I do not care if the two items would be literally 49 and 51%. I'm always taking the 51%. I don't care that you can make a justification or an argument for the 49%, or you can find isolated instances where the 49% was hyper-specific to end up being better. What I care about is the consistency and what actually is better and demonstrably so in the mass majority of situations, or like over a really large sample size, and what ultimately is more practical. I do not fucking care about your feelings. Holy shit. My God almighty. I'm so triggered by stuff like this. Oh.